Now I'm very excited to bring back a fantastic sports bettor and longtime friend of the show, and Mr. Ron Marmolewski from the Inside Blitz. You can follow Ron on Twitter at Ron Ace Sports. Ron, college football has entered the chat, my man. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, Kiev, all this off-season work that you and I do, putting in a lot of prep time, getting ready, and it's finally happening. We're not doing it for nothing. It's really going to happen later this week. On Saturday, they kick it off. So the writing can stop and the watching can start, and we'll see if we're right or we're wrong, but I'm excited that we're finally here.
I'm very excited that we're finally here. A couple days away, week 0, baby, week 0. And Farmageddon, no better place to do it was where they grow potatoes, I guess, in Ireland, but I guess that's farming enough. Just a different little landscape out there. I'm excited for that. And yeah, here we are. It's fun to talk. You and I, just like you said, have worked all through the summer, and we've probably been through this quite a few times. So, we're kind of to the point where, you might get a little repetitive, and so will I. But instead, let's just talk about just what's important to the numbers right now. And that's kind of like a buy low, sell high segment. I think, always talking about that, sometimes you'll bet a team and then the numbers move so much, you might even start liking the other side. And I think that's a practice that everybody has to do. You start arguing for both sides of things so they kind of understand what their own limitations are and their own biases. But we'll start with a sell high team. Let's just ask, what team or teams in general are you lower on than the college football market right now? Maybe it's going to be a future play, or maybe it's week 1 or 2 or 3, or even a season win total.
Yeah, so it takes me about 2 days to really finalize my power numbers, which I did about what's today? Tuesday. So Sunday night, I finally finalized my power numbers because I have a lot of check and balances in there. How they stack up in conference, how they stack up week 1, how they stack up to games of the year. Then I go back and repeat the process. So basically, there are 2 teams that I feel like I'm lower on the market based on my power numbers than others. One of them is Georgia Tech, and I can understand why the market is higher than me. But I'm just scared that Brett Key, he tends to pull a lot of upsets. I think 10 of them in the last 3 years. But he's not reliable as a favorite either. So we have to weigh the pluses and the minuses. And I know they start at full strength right now. And I feel like my number might stay low if they continue at full strength. But any injury to their running back or quarterback, and they're going to take a dive. And the other one is interesting in the SEC, and that's Auburn. I seem to be lower on the mark. Even though I have a pretty high power rating on Auburn, I seem to be lower than other people, as if they're automatically going to win 9 games. And Circa has the number and has had the number at 8 for the last month or 5 weeks. And I just don't think Auburn is a 9-win team. Now, that's different, Kiev, than covering spreads. I think they can cover spreads. I think they can hang with Alabama, but lose close. I think they can hang with the Mississippis and the other teams in the SEC and give them a game and cover the spread. But actually winning 9 games, I'm probably lower than market.
All right. Well, there you go. 2 of them. I was really high on Georgia Tech, and I've been high on them from the beginning of the season. I feel like it was the first bet I made back in April, May. So maybe I'd like to try to pat myself on the back. Did I start that trend? I don't know if I did. I don't know if I have that kind of pull, but you know what? Maybe you could have some points there. I mean, they're not exactly the most powerful recruiting team in the ACC. And Haynes King, they're very reliant on Haynes King this year. And you can probably say that for a few colleges as well, though. Yeah. It's not just one that, if the quarterback goes down, all hell breaks loose. It's pretty much all of them. For the most part, maybe not so much Notre Dame, but some of the more offensive teams. Let's stay in the ACC because I have Clemson lower than the marketplace, and I do just I mean, from what I saw last year, I kind of thought they were very, very fortunate to get by SMU in that championship game just to make the college football playoffs. It's just a lot of things worked out really well for them. Let's say, and you know what, they do return, and they finally. Dabo Sweeney finally got some transfers there, a couple of them, but I still think the team as a whole is not the Clemsons that we're used to with the Trevor Lawrence and the Deshaun Watson days. And I have Clemson at the 10th best team in my power ratings. I think people will have them a bit higher. So, those are my thoughts. And Auburn, I have at 22. So I don't know where you have Auburn. So I think some people have them a little higher. So maybe I do agree with you there.
Yeah, I'll have to check on Auburn, but I probably have them in the mid-20s. I have Clemson roughly around 7th. I could see your point because last year they really weren't as good. They kind of backed into even getting into the title game with Miami doing their usual flop at the end of the year. And then so they're there, they win the title game, and we think they're fine. But their numbers were not fine last year. I think this is a better team, but they're going to have to prove it on the field right away, week one, and an intriguing matchup against LSU. So I could see that as far as Clemson. We don't know. They kind of grow their own. They don't use the portal as much. They grow their own. And to Dabo's credit, they don't leave the program as much either. So they have roster stability in an era where roster stability doesn't exist anymore.
That's very true. There is an era where roster stability is terrible lately, and even the big teams have to switch out their recruits. So no disagreement from me there. That's 100% true. All right, how about buy low? Is there a team you're buying low on in college football?
Well, I'll give you one from the power and one from not. I seem to be higher on Kansas State via my power ratings than other people. I have them kind of clear number one in a conference, the Big 12, where you can just put names in a hat and figure it, and then at the end of the day, just draw a name, and that team will come in first, and that team will come in eighth. We saw that with Oklahoma State last year and other teams. But I think Kansas State over the years has earned the right to be called consistent. So I've kept my power rating pretty high for them while juggling some other ones. So that would be mine for the power ones. But I'm definitely higher on Navy than other people.
Okay, we'll listen to that. Higher on Navy. That's interesting. So I think I'm buying a little bit lower. I have discussed this one already, but I'm a little bit higher on Baylor. It's not like they're super high in my power ratings. I just like the returning production that they have, and I think they're the best team in the Big 12. Story Robinson's a fantastic quarterback, and the fact that they kept not only the coach Aranda, but the offensive coordinator there is very important. And I think that's just going to be consistency going through, being in the top 10 in returning production. I'm a little bit more of a buy low on Baylor this year, so we'll see if it comes to fruition. I'm waiting for a 3, and I'll be playing Baylor as the home dog in college football week 1. Thanks, Josh, for stopping by. Josh, Step on the Duck always stops by. He's great at gathering information, as you know. But it's Baylor for me. But we can kind of sniff some of these other ones out as well, Ron, in our little quick preview. And let's get right into it then. Conferences, baby, and we'll kind of go by alphabetical order. Why don't you fire away? The American Athletic Conference. Anything you like, dislike, any plays? What would you like to say about the American?
Okay, now I don't have a season win total over on Navy, but I don't have many season win totals that go over anyway. And I've cut down this year because I lost some good numbers. I got some good numbers. So, but I still have 30 something, like 35, and no overs in my top 20 or something like that. They're all unders. Josh understands that. We've had these conversations where he and I get aligned on the unders. But I do like Navy. They're kind of in an Army situation from last year. Army's quarterback was everything last year. 32 rushing touchdowns, good completion percentage, so on and so forth. Well, that's what Navy has in their returning quarterback this year. And I have Navy pretty much on par to be in the title game. And I don't think many people have them that high. So I think it's Navy and Memphis with Tulane lingering and a couple of other teams lingering. I know that Navy's schedule gets tricky in November, and that could the pacing could mess them up a little bit. But I think they're going to be pretty ready out of the gate due to that quarterback stability. So that's kind of what I see on the front end. And conversely, because Army lost their quarterback, I'm a little bit more down on Army. And I think they could actually not hit their win total.
I didn't make too many plays in there, but I do agree Navy is one of the better ones. If I was going to play to win the conference, Navy's plus 380, the favorite's Tulane at plus 300. I'm not a big Tulane backer. There's been a lot of money coming in on UTSA. I think Duck was part of that one that started it early, but Memphis is there at plus 550. I feel like the prices are kind of crappy on all these. How is like Army plus 650 and South Florida plus 700? It's just, I mean, if you look at all these numbers, it can't be positive EV to the math on it. I mean, obviously, unless one of these terrible teams are awesome. I agree with you. I kind of like Navy too. I would say a long shot to make the playoffs might be an okay look if you think Boise State loses 2 games, so that's another possible look. I'm guessing Navy's got, who doesn't lose to Notre Dame worse, Boise or Navy, right? It's like maybe Boise loses by 30 and Navy loses by 10. And then you can be like, okay, well, hey, Navy, baby, bring them in the college football playoff. I've heard a couple whispers from some sharp people from that. So good call. What about the ACC? Kind of we already just touched on.
The ACC, I don't see many teams differently than others at the top. I think Miami of Florida, again, has, if not Clemson, Miami of Florida has the most talent in the ACC. We're just waiting for them to implode sometime in November because their coach just tends to do something that you don't want to have happen at that particular time. For season wins, Pittsburgh opened at 5.5 season win to the over, slanted toward the over. I thought that was low. I know they ended the season on a 6-game losing streak or 7-game losing streak, but Pittsburgh has a very veteran team. I kind of like them not to get to the title game, but to overperform their expectations. And I think like everybody else, I'm kind of down on Cal. That when they lost their coordinator to Baylor, it really showed. I like their coach, Justin Wilcox. However, there's a ceiling to what they can do and all this travel and the fact that they lost 23 players after spring practice because that second portal was open, which should never have happened. You set your roster in the spring and then a quarter of your team leaves. That's unfair to any program, but it happened a lot. So I don't see any surprises in the ACC or in this particular. I think Clemson will be there. SMU has earned the right, but I think it's up to Miami. At some point, they have to meet expectations. And if not Miami, maybe Louisville sneaks in because I think that program has earned continuity as well.
So if you're low on Georgia Tech, they still have a disgustingly easy schedule. Yeah. And yes, you're correct about Spavital staying with, going to Baylor. That was the OC we were just talking about. Georgia Tech at 12-1. I don't see how they'd have to be pretty bad to not make the playoff game because they avoid Miami, who's number 2. They avoid SMU, that's number 3. They avoid Louisville, that's number 4. They avoid Florida State, that's number 6. They avoid North Carolina as number 8. It's one of those situations where it's just their schedule's too dang easy and they get Clemson at home. So it's just like this could be a team that's terrible ATS if Ron's correct about some of the stuff and not saying everything's number dependent, but they might just be bad ATS and still get there just based on schedule. So you have some hedging opportunities. Don't get me wrong. If one of these teams, Miami, Clemson, SMU is just such a powerhouse, you still might be laying minus 500-600 to cover your bet, which is always fun. It's like, oh, great, I have to lay 2-1 just to make 12-1. It's like, it's a lot tougher in that situation where you're, 4-1 just to win, a unit or two. That's not fun, but that's why we look at these things.
Yeah. And so I'm not fading Georgia Tech. It's just, I think they're getting a little bit too much hype. And it wouldn't surprise me if the running back and the quarterback stayed healthy all year. It wouldn't surprise me if they got close to the top of the ACC. I think overall their talent, especially defensively, I'm not sold defensively that they could match up with Miami's offense, with Louisville's offense, maybe even Clemson's offense with their quarterback. But I think they can play with anybody and compete with anybody, but those guys have to stay healthy.
All right, fair enough. And Duck said North Texas in the American. Yeah, it was a great call when they're 20-1. They're 12-1. And don't get me wrong.
I'm okay with North Texas. I do want to see a little bit more out of their defense. I don't have it right in front of me whether they added or changed defensive coordinators. Maybe they did because, that's been the bugaboo for them is they have to outscore teams year in and year out.
Right.
So maybe they'll be better.
Well, Josh could be right. 12-1 still could be good. I mean, I looked at him and I was like, well, I missed the better number, but that's us sometimes being stubborn. Even if you miss the better number, and I have to tell myself this all the time, doesn't mean there's still not value on the current number. So always take that in mind. It's like missing it is called an opportunity, sunk opportunity, right? Opportunity cost. Yeah. It don't matter. It's just you still could be still opportunity left in the hole right there. So let's move on to the Big Ten. What do you have for the Big Ten?
Well, no surprises at the top. I was surprised that Ohio State graded out as high as they did. I really thought that they would be the third best team, and they grade out in conference a little bit higher than Penn State and a little bit higher than Oregon for me. Now, in the scheme of total wins, because Ohio State plays Texas, they're not going to grade out as high for me as Penn State does. And Penn State's loaded this year. The question is, can they go over the top? My biggest problem is Matt Patricia. I just can't get over the fact that he's going to take over for Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator and that they're just going to be the same old defensive team with some of their seniors gone and so on. So my numbers say that Ohio State will be right there. My gut says that Ohio State will find a way to lose a game that they shouldn't lose and that they got to the top. They benefited from the 12-team playoff. They may not have even made an 8-team playoff, even if it expanded to 8 because they lost to Michigan at the end of the year. They obviously didn't make the Big Ten title game. So a lot of good karma at the end of the year, and they played great ball at the end of the year. But the bottom line is I don't think they're quite as good a team as last year, and I don't think they have as good a coaching in the coordinator spots as last year. Yet they still graded out based on who they played to be that high. So that surprised me a little bit. Circa just moved Nebraska to 8 in terms of their season win total. And just like with Auburn, we're basing that on conjecture more than what they've actually accomplished. Do you think Nebraska is a 9-win team? Because I could get there if I trusted their special teams and if I trusted their offensive attack. But I want to see it first.
I have to see it first. Right now, that program has just been in disarray, and they finally made a bowl game, and now we're asking them to win 9 games. Absolutely not. It's still the Big Ten, and I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to be high in Nebraska. I have them power ranked with Illinois, to be honest, but I'm also low on Illinois, so no surprises there. I also have Ohio State as my number 1 power rated team, yet I also have Penn State winning the most games, so no difference.
Same.
No difference for me on that one. Let's go to the Big 12. This one's always been pretty wide open. Is it wide open again?
Yeah, it's wide open again. Obviously, the news out of BYU where their quarterback was suspended, I felt they weren't going to get to 8.5 anyway before that. So I've got a pretty big position on BYU, so I'm pretty happy about that. Texas Tech is the interesting team because they're trying to buy themselves into the Big 12 race and to be first. And they spent a lot of money before there were any guardrails there. And there's another team I have to see it defensively. There was at Stations Casino, for example, to quote some numbers, that they hung a 9. Do you think Texas Tech is a 10-win team? Well, maybe they're a 10-win team, but they have to prove it on the field. And what do you think about Oklahoma State? Because they took a big dive last year out of nowhere, picked second and third in the conference, and they finished pretty much dead last in the conference. And they don't look any better. Their offensive line was completely shredded. What is it? 250 career starts gone. But they just have so many historical pluses in their schedule. I don't know what to do about Oklahoma State because I kind of think they're going to get to 6 wins.
Mike Gundy's been a good coach when he's underrated, but from last year, it's hard to see him stepping up when they don't return any real starter on offense. This team is just decimated, and the Big 12, it wouldn't shock me, but it's just nothing shocks me in the Big 12. I suppose if there was a team to shock me, it'd be West Virginia and Rich Rod all of a sudden the first year doing something.
Yeah.
But literally, there's nothing that would shock me in this conference.
Yeah.
And even Cincinnati could be better. This Cincinnati-Nebraska game is going to tell me a lot about both teams. And so I'm kind of going to think a little bit more about that one when I'm going to watch that one. It's going to be in Kansas City too, which is going to be cool. And I'm going to try to make a good judgment on what I'm seeing, not just score-wise, but how they're playing in the trenches and things like that. So I kind of hope that, Nebraska's got a pretty decent schedule. The USC at UCLA back-to-back is kind of weird. At Penn State, I have them losing. And then Iowa at home is a prove-it game. They got Michigan at home at least, and they avoid Ohio State and Oregon. So, there is paths for them. But, Wisconsin's going to be – we'll see. Actually, they're not even playing Wisconsin this year, thank God.
Let me give you a number, though, for Nebraska, and this is typical of every single year. Now, they've hired a legit special team coordinator this year, somebody with a proven record, which in the past they've had none, or they've had somebody with an unproven record. 11 kicks blocked against Nebraska last year.
Yeah.
Which is some sort of unheard of stat. I mean, if you're going to give games away, basically that's an average of 1 per game that they're just giving away.
Yeah, it's just not good. It's not the way you're going to win games. So I'm going to be honest, even though my season win total has 7.85, because I have them ranked pretty high. Like I said, I have them around Illinois, like 33rd, 32nd, something like that. I'm still not trusting them. It's one of those prove it to me. Like I like Raiola. He's been kind of like a transfer. He's been transferring since his freshman year of high school. From high school, he's been winning in places. Don't get me wrong, but this dude, a little full of himself. We'll see. We'll see what happens here in the Big Ten. Let's move on to the Conference USA. What do you think about this one? It's always kind of this is definitely the weakest conference in all of Power 4 college, all college football, all FBS, not Power 4, FBS. What do you think about Conference USA?
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire, really, with what they have in the conference. So let me just talk about Middle Tennessee State, which I faded a lot last year because Derek Mason is on my bottom 5 coaches list. And what I do with this, and has been successful, is I chart it out as if a team has an average coach. And if, like last year, I charted out MTSU to have 5 wins if they had an average coach. And then I knocked them down 1.5 wins because they don't have an average coach. They have a bottom 5 coach. Same I do with Maryland with Loxley. These guys are proven, unfortunately, not good coaches. So I got to 3.5 last year with Middle Tennessee, and I said, great, I'm going under 5 for everything I have. So this year, Middle Tennessee State looked like a 6-6 team with a decent coach. And then I do my schedule grid, and they come out to 6.45 wins, Kiev. Even if I subtract 1.5, they come out with 5 wins, which is above their 4.5 number. And I should be betting they have 11 win chances according to their schedule. I think I'm even low at 6.45 wins. But then I write the 64-page report. I have 60-some thousand words, And there's one sentence in there that I look at and I say, how do I explain to my wife that I lost money on Derek Mason? So, because
that's hard.
That's hard because she's going to shake her head and say, what are you doing? Because on paper, considering the competition and all the new coaches and how bad Conference USA is, Middle Tennessee State should at the very least be at a bowl game. Yeah, plug your nose. He said, yeah, but I will have to explain this to my wife.
It's a lot of nose plugging. I mean, your wife, maybe she knows some football. That's good. It's a great.
Yeah, she does.
That's a great. That's a great quality as it is. Someone to watch the games without being upset with you about it. Sometimes we burn out our family members. Let's face it. Come on, we do. Yeah, Middle Tennessee State. I mean, God, it's a schedule that can get them there. And Josh says, plug your nose and bet the over.
Yeah,
it's funny. I looked at this a while ago. I'm just for what you said. I'm gonna see what my season win total number is with the probability matrix that I have on Middle Tennessee State here, and it comes up to 4.17. So sorry, maybe my power rating is just too low on them guys, but it's still above 4. I don't know. I'm not touching it. I mean, I took liberty, and that's the very, very simple situation. And if you think Boise State gets 2 losses, maybe Liberty is the undefeated one that says, hey, we should make it in. Then everyone's like, you didn't play any Power 4. It's just that you have to hear that all year, right? That's always fun.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want Liberty in. I'll just say that right now. Don't mean it won't happen. Mac, return of the Mac, my friend. Who do you have in the Mac?
So we're talking about, what group of 5 team can get there. And I am not a Jason Campbell fan, coach of Toledo, but this is Toledo's best team, in my opinion, in a long time, considering the other group of 5. And a lot of group of 5 are lower than usual because their guys get poached by the bigger schools. You've got a star player. He's probably playing in the SEC or the Big Ten now. But Toledo brings back a decent chunk of their offense. They insert another quarterback who's had success. I think Toledo is if I had more coaching consistency and power ratings, they don't work for Toledo. They're the one team out of 136 that power ratings really don't work. But I have Toledo as a serious contender for a playoff spot because I think they're going to be favored in a high number of their games, and they stand out to me in this conference.
Losing to Bowling Green at home, 26-41, and then Ohio 7-24, literally made no sense last year for Toledo, and that's just how they are.
Yeah.
And then they beat Miami of Ohio pretty well, 30-20. They win at Mississippi State by double digits. Yeah. Of course, Mississippi State's not a great school, but it's just, you're right. This is a team that scares the hell out of you. How about the Mountain West, my friend? Is this Boise State's to rule it all?
So, is it Boise State's? Yes, according to my power ratings, it is. San Jose State, I have second. UNLV, I have third. But I want to talk about kind of handicapping philosophy for a second. Take a little bit more time. Do you or Duck, Josh, do you know the name James Shibest? Shibest.
Shibest. No.
Okay.
Josh?
If you don't know him, you're like 99% of the people out there that don't know him. I will tell you right now, he is by far the best special team coordinator this sport has ever seen. And I'm going to give you a little bit of history. First, he started off not as a coordinator, but he was involved with with 2 programs that won titles, Butler and I can't remember the other team, but he also won 2 SEC titles in a coaching capacity with, I think it was Mississippi or somebody in the SEC, Arkansas.
Arkansas, it says. I'm on Wiki right now.
Cotton Bowl with Mississippi. Then he goes to Memphis, teams up with Justin Fuente, and he becomes a special team coordinator. 5 years there, 3 times, according to just Phil Steele and a couple of other publications, top 5 in special teams, a number 1, a number 2, and a number 5. Fuente moves to Virginia Tech. He takes Shebest with him. They finish number 1 again with him, but then Fuente is fired. He goes to UNLV in 2023. UNLV's rating in 2021 and 2022 on special teams was 117th and 116th. That's pretty bad, right? But Shebest is there. He's going to improve them, right? He's going to get them in the top 40, right? No, he gets them number 2 in 2023. And he said, well, you can't improve upon that. Well, yes, you can. He got them to number 1 last year. So this guy takes a team with UNLV and he moves them from 116 and 117 to number 2 and number 1. And now Barry Odom moves to Purdue and he moves with him to Purdue, who had even worse special teams. So we'll see how that goes. But all I'm saying is that I think the fact that he left UNLV will cost UNLV a game this year. And that's just the way I handicap special teams. And that's why I'm further down on UNLV than other people.
He is Shebest, special teams coordinator in college football history. Well, it's going to be fun to watch Purdue special teams because now I have a reason to do it. Yeah, UNLV, I mean, I am remembering their special teams is pretty darn good last year. And what a little nugget that we just got from Ron. Wow. Yeah, that's fun stuff right there. I really appreciate that information. You got me something to think about, something to watch now with Purdue. Thank you, Ron. I'm thinking he's going under UNLV. That might be a hint a little bit on that one.
Yeah, we have some liability there, and on paper they look like they can threaten. And they look 8-4 to me, but somewhere along the line, if their protection goes down or something happens to special teams, you can go back and say, hey, wait a second. Guess what happened? They lost an elite special team coordinator. And I just value special teams a little bit more than most people. And I factor that in to my handicapping and my season win projections. When somebody loses a very good place kicker, and then somebody like Brad Powers or something I read and says that they've had kicking issues in the spring, I make note of that.
It's good that you make note of that. And man, the reason their season win total is high is because they only play one Power 5 school, Power 4 school, that's UCLA, because they go to at Sam Houston and they get an Idaho State team at home. But man, Air Force could be a loss. At Boise State's a loss. At Colorado State could be a loss. Versus UCLA is a loss. And then you still got to get through Hawaii, Utah State, at Nevada, New Mexico, probably a win at Wyoming, never perfect in Laramie, at Miami, Ohio. I'm with you. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if this pans out, but if it costs them one game, then they're going to have to win 9 other games.
Yeah, 9 other games is tough. They don't return many people. I know a lot of people left with Barry Odom to Purdue. And I just, Dan Mullen, he's a good coach, but just the first year coming in. Yeah, I'm with you. UNLV is going to be an underplay. Thank you for turning me on to that. Let's move on to the next one. And we have the SEC. What do you have in the SEC, Ron?
Well, the rich get richer. Their power rating composite is 5 points higher than the Big Ten, which is another 4 or 5 points higher than other leagues. But yeah, I'm down on Auburn, and they're the 9th rated power team, and yet they're the 20-something best team in the nation. I don't know what to make of Georgia this year because people are kind of forgetting about them. I don't know if LSU steals a win week 1, but I have LSU. I think LSU can make the playoffs. Again, I don't bet season win overs on many of these teams, and I'm not bet any of them, but I think we're looking at 4 SEC teams. And if Notre Dame doesn't make the playoffs, I think we're looking at 5 SEC teams in the playoffs this year, because I think the Big Ten is going to have either 3 or 4, depending on what happens with Michigan. So I think the SEC is going to be really good. Texas and Georgia graded out 1-2, but Alabama and LSU were right on their heels. the thing about Ole Miss, let me say something about Ole Miss. If Ole Miss had this schedule last year, they would have won 10 or 11 games and been in the playoffs. Ole Miss has a better schedule, but they have a definitely worse team. They're 7 power rating points worse this year than I had them last year, but they have a better schedule. So we'll see how the pacing goes week to week, because they have a very good pacing, but I just don't like their team as much.
Fair enough. I like LSU too. They're still plus 110 to make the playoffs at DraftKings. Something I've been looking at a little bit. I didn't fire on anything. I like Alabama still the most until I see Simpson, of course, and I assume he's going to be good, but no disagreement. What about Sun Belt? Fun Belt.
So the Sun Belt, basically, they still play divisions. So you have one division where UL, Lafayette, they're the favorite, and one division that James Madison is the favorite. And to me, they're dead even in a way, that have James Madison a little higher power rated, but in terms of how many wins they're going to get in conference, I have them dead even. And I think James Madison is a dark horse contender for the group of 5. If we're talking that Boise, just what you said, if Boise loses by 30 to Notre Dame and Navy loses by 30 to, if elimination happens in other conferences, if Toledo loses that usual game that they're favored by 10 and they lose by 20 or something like that, what about James Madison kind of slipping in? Because they lost 2 games at the end of the year for their first year coach, Chesney. And if they don't win that, we're talking about them in a different, if they win that, we're talking about them in a higher light. The fact that they only won 8 games in the regular season, they almost won 10. They were 8-1, 8-2. And I think they're maybe a little bit better this year. So James Madison, I hold in high regard.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. There is quite a few people on the James Madison train this year. I'm the sucker for the Marshall transfer, Charles Huff, that moves there, and all the guys they took with. I'm going to be. I know that there's misleading scores and everything last year, but they still got the job done. It's just the number on them was too big. I think they could play James Madison though in the final game, and you can get a little hedgy wedgy on that because this conference still has divisions. So definitely.
So I have a question for you, kind of a general question for you, for Josh, if he's listening and stuff like that. One of the hardest things to do when you have 70 players turning around and so on and so forth is to ignore what happened last year and set a completely different power rating number to start the next year. So the Southern Miss Marshall dilemma is one that I wrestled with to the last minute. At the end of last year, I had Marshall 24 power rating points at better than Southern Miss. Now, we know what Southern Miss was a disaster last year and so on. They quit and stuff, and Marshall won the title. So it makes sense there were 24 different. But now half of Marshall's team is on Southern Miss, new coaching staff and so on, and we have to forgive them. So where do you have them in terms of power ratings? I've kind of centered on they're almost dead even to start this year.
Are you talking about Marshall?
Marshall versus Southern Miss.
I have Southern Miss higher than Marshall, by a good amount. I'm not afraid to make these big changes. I'm not. And you know what?
Yeah.
I used to look at history more, but when you see such a change, and I remember with Kirk Cignetti last year,
right?
I remember with what happened at ASU, with their coach, and with Jed Fish leaving Arizona. You have to adjust more. You have to adjust more. I have Marshall quite a few points under that, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's what the week 1, week 2, in these early weeks are for, is making these adjustments. And if you're right and you get ahead of the market, you're starting your season on a plus. So just because of the last two years or so with the transfer portals and everything, I've made those adjustments. Ron, great question.
That's the biggest dilemma that I face, because after 45 years of setting power numbers, this is the first time that I've had to deal with brand new. I mean, I dealt with Michigan having a brand new team. I dealt with Washington. I knew how to handle that. But when you get down to the Southern Misses and the Marshalls and stuff like that, it was a little tougher. I dealt with Oregon State last year, but I know that team very well, and it was very easy for me to undercut the market last year. They weren't going to win 7.5 games. That was a fact. So that was an easy one. This one was just a little tougher. And Florida State is the other team that I'm wrestling with because they were at 93 with Jordan Travis right before his injury. They ended last year at 64. They're not a 93 anymore. They're not a 64 anymore. So that's another team. I'm just saying this out loud because it's a dilemma that if we're originating, you're originating, and I'm originating, we have to wrestle with these decisions.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to. And I remember just people trying to catch up last year. And don't get me wrong, there's screw ups. You go way too far.
Yeah.
But it's not 1 or 2 points no more in the first week.
Right.
It's not, man. You have to find the middle ground, and you got to be careful. Some of these teams, just because you have a power rating on, are just so highly variant. It's not always worth betting on them, and you just kind of have to wait and see. So you just pick your spots. Speaking of pick your spots, do you have like anything for week 0? Because here we are, week 0 this weekend.
Week 0 this weekend. Well, week 0, not really. I took, based on my power ratings, I took Hawaii when they were a dog, +2 dog. I wouldn't take them now.
That thing flipped pretty good. Yeah. 5 points.
Yeah, I said, well, wait a second. I'm not a Tommy. I mean, Tommy Chung is well regarded. He's beloved in Hawaii, but he hasn't proven anything as a head coach. But I don't know how Stanford, with all their spring problems and firing a coach due to cause and then getting all this together and moving it all, how do they go there and try to beat a more experienced team with a guy who's seen this roster and whatever? It would be a real... I mean, you got to downgrade Hawaii. You got to make some changes if you can't beat a Stanford team that's in disarray. Yet I don't know that I trust them. There's no way I would make this play with Hawaii being a favorite, but I made it based on power ratings originally.
No, I agree. I think it's a great play. I'm scared. I have no idea what to expect. I remember Hawaii, and I don't even remember what year it was, but there was a time that they were supposed to beat someone in week 0, week 1, and they didn't. I'm going to pull up there. I used to go to CFB stats. I like that one a lot. And I'll just see if I can find it while I'm walking here. Yeah, that's been one of my go-to places for years. I hope it never goes away. Like, you see some of these sites going away. For all you guys out there, cfbstats.com. It's quick. It's a very fast website. That's what you love about it. It loads very fast. It's just one of my go-to whenever I need something quick. I definitely love going to this site here. So I'll pull up Hawaii and see if I know what I'm talking about. But great number.
I want to echo that, what you just said. I think you cannot understate what you just said, how important that site is. If somebody, like, we're going to have injury reports now. So you go right to that site. You could see that person's injured. He's got 5 sacks. They're going to have to compensate for that. There's so many ways you can use that site. So I'd recommend it to anybody who's listening.
2022, they lost to Vanderbilt week 0.
Oh,
63-10. I was at the Circa watching it, and I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. So it's just one of those, like, what the hell just happened? They did beat Delaware last year, 35-14. The Blue Hens are, this was Delaware State they beat. So
even worse.
There you have it, even worse. But I'm a little scared now that it flipped. So I think you got some good value. If it goes to 3, I would consider a half buyback on your side of things. Man, it's going to be fun to watch this week 0. I took some Iowa State at 3.5 at -105. I did see a 4, and I was kind of upset with myself, but then it came back to 3, so I feel a little bit better now. But I just feel like Farmageddon, that should be a little bit closer than 3.5 points. So I did take that, and I'm not a big Rocco Beck guy, but I'm also not that big on Kansas State either. I think they're very close in power ratings, so I'm just going to take the dog. I think there's value on the dog, so that's the way I looked at it. What about week 1? Any plays for week 1?
Well, I'm the marquee games, which I don't always play as much. I kind of think that Miami of Florida is the play against Notre Dame. If you look at roster losses, I know Cam Ward is gone, but they have Carson Beck. The only thing I need to know is he 100% healthy? I watched all the media days, and it seems like he's 100% healthy. Miami's usually quick starting out of the gate. I just think Notre Dame's going to have some issues replacing some of their talent. They have a dynamite running back in the backfield. They're always good defensively, but this is a loaded Miami offense as well. So I just think that Miami, especially at home in this particular game, I like the spot for Miami. And one other one I would mention is that even though I understand the love for Utah out there, I can't get to UCLA being almost a 7-point dog in this particular game. I think I just think that the gap isn't that big that UCLA with Nico there, that they're going to be able to navigate, move the ball a little bit. I just can't find the 7-point gap between Utah and UCLA being at home.
Get it fast. It's moving down. I took +6.5, and I don't see a 7. I don't need a 7. I think UCLA is a great money line play in this situation as well. I am 100% on board with that. I'm going to go with a play that I made earlier, a little bit better of a number, but I still like it. FAU versus Maryland. Maryland's -14. The total's 59.5. I like over, and I like this over up to 61. Zach Kately comes in from the into the Owls from being the offense coordinator at Texas Tech. Speed. If you remember, blazing 6th in pace, 23.3 seconds in between plays. Maryland themselves ranks 26th in pace last year. I don't see them slowing it down. They do not have a great defense, Ron. Maryland only ranks 107th in returning production, but the only side of the ball that I can trust is their offense, really, especially against the bad teams where they can beat up. This team has good quarterbacks battling in Justin Martin and Malik Washington, so I like that. They have good transfer receivers in Jaleel Farouk from Oklahoma, and they have Caleb Webb from Tennessee. So I like this. The Terps only return one starter on defense. I'm on the over. I'm on the over. I don't love a lot of early overs, but that's one I do. So.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, Maryland has some coaching issues there. Their team seems a little bit weaker. We have a new coach, obviously, with FAU, so a little bit of uncertainty, but maybe not uncertainty with pace, like you're talking about.
Yes, not no uncertainty with pace. Well, here we are, man. It's funny. I haven't brought beer bet bangers in yet, but maybe this should be the first one. Any long shots that you've taken for the year, whether it's and it could be +100 or above, like you just said, the LSU +110. I mean, to make the playoffs. I don't know if that's the one that you're thinking, but you have anything to throw out there?
Well, the disclaimer is I don't play the index props. I don't play the Heisman Trophy. I don't play these things and so on. I played to make the playoffs last year, and I split them because I hadn't, even though with the difficult schedule, I thought Mississippi had a fantastic squad, and I had both Mississippi and in one of their plays and Penn State to make the 12-team playoff. But I think they were low minus, like -130. So they weren't bangers by any means. If I did anything, I would consider Navy to win the American Conference, at least if you could hedge it if they get into the playoff picture, or you can, because they're going to be, I think they're going to start really strong. LSU, you mentioned, I hold your nose would be Toledo to get in the playoff picture, because I just think they really are the best team in the MAC. And then it just depends on what these other teams do that have stronger schedules. Because Liberty, remember when Liberty went undefeated and then they got, 56-3 or something against Oregon? They just didn't belong because their strength of schedule was so poor. So poor. That's why I think even if Liberty is undefeated, I don't know if they get in, because their schedule is just so weak. And you have to weigh that, because the committee saw what happened with certain teams even last year. Well, Indiana didn't play anybody, and there they go, and they lose to Notre Dame. And even though it's not a crime to lose to Notre Dame, the committee remembers that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes, they do. And they absolutely do. So keep that in mind. I'll go with Ryan Williams for beer bets, just a little bit on Heisman and a little bit on Biletnikoff. It's 5-1 Biletnikoff, 40-1 Heisman. Jeremiah Smith's the biggest competition to him. But you have to remember that we don't know if Julian Sayin is bad or good at quarterback. And I think that Alabama with DeBoer there is going to be putting up more points. And now that Milroe's gone, I think the kid can finally shine a little bit. It's all number dependent because, I mean, Biletnikoff, Jeremiah Smith's like plus 150, and I'm getting plus 500. Now, if they were equal, I would take Jeremiah Smith, but they're not, So this is a beer bet banger, it's nothing that great, but
that's for Biletnikoff. That's for the
Biletnikoff.
Biletnikoff Award. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah, it's not a bad deal at all. And I expect Alabama having to score a lot of points to stay in some of these games with a better quarterback from what I'm hearing in Simpson. So that's what we're going with, Ron. But my man, that's what we have for today. Awesome stuff. You gave me a lot to think about. Pulling out like special teams coordinators and James Shebest. It's just wonderful listening to you, Ron, and hearing all your great insights. Can you tell our audience where they can get your great information?
Well, a lot of the written stuff won't be out. I'll probably publish on X Twitter the power ratings that I'm starting with. Again, power ratings are guidelines. It doesn't necessarily mean they're plays by itself. You like to have metric and matchup data with it, but I'll put that out. Chris and I were talking yesterday, and we'll probably revive some of our chats as far as during the football season. We're figuring out a schedule. We'll probably do some NFL previews as early as next week. Other than that, probably some guest spots, hang out with you, with Kyle, maybe with Josh every once in a while to get the information out, and tweet something here and there, but low key to start, but that doesn't mean that we're not prepared to get started on the season.
That's right. That doesn't mean we're not prepared. Well, awesome stuff. Could you please post that on Twitter so we can see that great stuff, all the links and everything you just discussed. Make sure you guys check out Ron, one of my go-to people, one of the great guys out there that we trust. Thanks again, Ron. We'll be talking shortly for college football season.